Herb and Markie Burch. Before I introduce them and we kind of get into the presentation, I did want to point out a couple of things. First of all, again, this is a webinar, not a Zoom meeting. So unfortunately, I cannot see all of your wonderful smiling faces, only your names, and you all will not be able to see or talk to one another either. But even given that, I did want to let you know that we will be recording this webinar. So just wanted to put that out there. Also, as you listen to the Burches, we are thrilled to have them with us and looking forward to all that they will share. And I imagine that it will generate some questions or thoughts or comments in your mind. And so there's a couple of ways that you can engage with me and with them throughout the webinar. At the bottom of your screen, if you hover your cursor over it, you'll see a chat button, and you'll also see a Q&A button. You can use either of those. Chatting is just kind of like sending a text message. I'll be monitoring that throughout the presentation and jotting down any questions that come in. You can also send them at the conclusion of the presentation. And then Q&A is a way to ask a specific question. And either I can answer it or I can save it and share it with the Burches at the end of their time, and they can answer it for you. So throughout the presentation, feel free to submit your comments, questions, thoughts, anything that you would like an answer from, would like to hear from them on at any time, and we'll make sure we get to those. Next, just so you all know who I am, my name is Erin McKenzie, and I serve as the volunteer coordinator for our region. So I am based in Santiago, Dominican Republic, and I'll be serving as kind of an MC for this afternoon, morning. And then I did want to introduce just briefly the Burches. I will let them, I don't want to steal their thunder, but Herb and Markie Burch are veteran missionaries in Latin America and the Caribbean. They've served in numerous places, so I will let them tell you more about their trajectory and how they got to where they live right now, which is Belize. They like to remind us that they live on the beautiful banks of the Belize River. You can see their gorgeous background behind them. That is not a Zoom virtual background, that is their background. And there are so many exciting things happening in Belize. It's a fascinating place that God has called them to do ministry. And they're also able in their role within our region to do things that benefit not just Belize, but elsewhere in the region. So without further ado, I will ask Herb to open us in prayer and then take it away.
Thank you very much, Erin. Let's pray. Gracious Holy God and Father, you have led us to this time and this place in Belize, and we're so very thankful for all of your blessings and grace, even in the face of many challenges that we have today. And so we thank you also, Lord, for all of the people who have a great interest in missions, and for those who have joined us from wherever they happen to be. I saw Wisconsin on there. I know Arkansas is on. And so, and also we know that the Dominican Republic is leading this. And so, Lord, wherever we happen to be around the world, we thank you for this modern means of communication, and that we're able then to share what you are doing here in Belize. And so be with us this day, bless us, and keep us in the palm of your hand. And we pray this in Jesus' holy name. Amen.
Amen. Did you hit share screen?
I did not hit share screen.
My job is to interrupt Herb and help him all the way along with surprises.
So we're going to go to a PowerPoint presentation here, and hopefully we can get my screen up here and put it up full.
Erin, let us know if you can't see it.
So
Okay. Let's
I was pastoring in Santa Maria, California at Grace Lutheran Church, and I was getting on in years and talking about retirement, and Markie said, well, what are you going to do in retirement? she had a swell job in Lompoc, California as a librarian, a head librarian. And I said, well, I think I might go onto the mission field again because, playing golf would get boring, and skiing, you can only ski a couple of months out of the year from California. And so we put our names out, and there was a call, several calls, asking us to go to Peru. And we went to Peru then for 3 years, and we had opened up missions here in Belize through the Meissner family. And I was acting as the area facilitator, not only for Peru, but also for Belize. And, and things happened that it required another missionary here. We had tried to call a couple more missionaries to Belize, and they turned the calls back. And so Ted Cray, our regional director, came to me and said, so Herb, would you and Markie consider going to Belize? Well, our children are all grown and they're all married and have children. And so we were pretty footloose and fancy free. And so we said, well, we'll go to Belize. And so here we are in the twilight of our years, doing God's work here in Belize. And we're so very thankful that he has called us here. So since we've been in Belize, we've been driving around in a 4-wheel drive Mahindra pickup. Those are made in India, and you can't find them in the US, but it's a pretty bouncy vehicle. And so we ask you to fasten your seatbelt because we're going to take you down some of the roads of Belize, and most of them are not paved except for the major arterials. And so it gets pretty bumpy, so fasten your seatbelt. And it's not just a bumpy road in the truck, it's also a bumpy road in missions. So here we are kind of in the center of Belize. Belmopan was established as the capital of Belize after Hurricane Hattie afflicted the country many years ago, and 90% of Belize City was destroyed by the hurricane. And at the time, the leadership was convinced that they should relocate the capital to a very centric location in this little country. And so in the very, very center of the country, you can get anywhere from Belmopan to the rest of Belize within 2.5, 3 hours. And so we also then decided that the best thing that we could do is to work out of a hub. And so Markie and I began looking for a place that was more centric, closer to Belmopan. And that is how we ended up then at Banana Bank Ranch here on the beautiful banks of the Belize River.
I guess I can show that too. Yeah.
So, and there is the Belize River. And so this gets us then into Belmopan, and it is from here that we have begun, have been working ever since. Now, you might wonder, well, and we wondered too, we were Spanish speakers, and how is it that we were being called to Belize, which is an officially English speaking country? And much to our delight and to our surprise, one of the communities that is very close to us, no more than 15 minutes away on our bumpy road, is the village of Valley of Peace. And many years ago, back in the late 80s and early 90s, there were several civil wars within Central America, in El Salvador, in Guatemala, Honduras, and the president, the then prime minister of Belize, George Price, got together with the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, and they offered land to anybody that would come to Belize that wanted to seek refuge in Belize from these civil wars. And so there were many people who were, a lot of people that lived in the country, in the campo they call it, who fled their countries, El Salvador especially, to Valley of Peace. There are other communities, one called Armenia, for instance, that are also cities of refuge within Belize. And so it was here that we were delighted to find that the people there don't speak English, they speak Spanish. And on one of our very first visits into Valley of Peace, we came across this couple. Now, necessity sometimes is the mother of invention, and Markie and I both were looking for a place where we could get our hair cut. And as we drove up one of the roads in Valley of Peace, we came across a sign, Cindy's Beauty Shop. And so we stopped there, and we inquired with regard to whether or not we would be able to visit this place. And we found out that Cindy not only cuts ladies' hair, but she also cuts gentlemen's hair. And so we went in and visited her and got a very fine haircut at a very good price. And she had come from El Salvador a couple of years ago, and she this fine gentleman on her right, Ismael, and Ismael was a well-respected member of the community of Valley of Peace, and is also an industrious young man. And so it was through this couple that we started exploring then some other possibilities, and we saw that they had been called and asked to actually take care of a resort up in Pine Ridge for a while, really isolated. And we went up and visited them there too. And we saw how well they were taking care of this this eco resort. And we said, if we ever get a chance again, we want to use them. And so, Cindy and Ismael, they put their lives together in marriage. And so we see, and we are the honorary grandparents of their daughter, Yanis. And so one of the things that Cindy mentioned to Markie is that she really wanted to learn English better. And so Markie volunteered to start English as a second language in their home. And they invited us into their home where they were living in Valley of Peace. And it started out as just 4 or 5 people coming. And then after that, we found that the needs were much greater. And the next thing you know, we were having to move it then to a larger area. And fortunately, the Lord placed something in our hands in Valley of Peace that is a treasure to us, and has really increased our ability to do ministry. And that is the campus that we call the campus of Good Shepherd Lutheran Campus. Before it was called River of Life. And this campus then had this beautiful school building and a church building, and another building that was used for other purposes in the back. And so this beautiful campus fell into our hands, and we were able to start using it immediately to do English as a second language within Valley of Peace. And so as I enter into the school there, you see that and we're inside there and surveying it. When we first went into this, it had become the habitation of bats, and it was not very savory inside. And so we swept it out, and we had to seal up all of the soffits to exclude the bats. And little by little, we were able to make this a good place where we might meet together for ESL and for other classes.
Something I might add is one of the things that was a surprise to me when I was teaching English is how few people know how to read who came from those refugee situations. So literacy is also an area where we have probably ministry mercy outreach.
So because of the pandemic and limitations on the number of people that we can gather together, our vicar, Benjamin Flores, he was Vicar Benjamin Flores, he is now Reverend Benjamin Flores from Bolivia, began working with Cindy and Ismael, catechetical instruction, and little by little, we have gathered members of Cindy's family together. Today, we have a small congregation that is forming there in Valley of Peace. And all of this ministry is being done in Spanish, of course. And so we continue to be able to exercise our Spanish and take advantage of the fact that we have a native Spanish speaking pastor among us. And I mentioned that little building that was in the center there of that big panoramic picture of the campus. That was used as you see it in the upper left there, and that had been used as an internet cafe for a while, but that had also become the dwelling place of bats. And we went in there and Markie turned right around and walked out. She said, I don't think so.
When Herb said beautiful campus, I'm thinking, I remember when we first stepped into everything and it was just really a mess. It's been a challenge to get it cleaned up.
And so we were able to through Ismail and Cindy meet a man who is a builder and a contractor and has worked for many years on the Placencia Peninsula in Belize, and he's a Hispanic from Western Belize, and he said, well, we've got to do some things with that. The walls were spreading at the top because there had not been a rafter that had been placed across that held the walls together. So he actually jacked the roof up and added then a reinforced rafter to support the whole walls of that building. And so not only that, we added a bathroom, 2 bedrooms, and a kitchen. And here we see then we had the dedication of this house just a few short months ago. And this is, we placed then, we asked Cindy and Ismail if they would be willing to live there. They had been living in a kind of a makeshift building that had a lot of mud. In fact, we got stuck down in their mud a couple of times. And so they are now living on the campus, and little by little with Ismail's industry, we are improving the whole campus there. We're going to travel now to a different place in Belize, and we're going to go down to the Placencia Peninsula. And I've kind of outlined there, and Markie is going with the cursor all the way down to Riversdale and there down to Placencia. And so we've enlarged the map so that you can see where we are. And we've got 2 gathering places. Many years ago, there were tourists. Placencia is the second most popular tourist destination in Belize because of its beautiful fishing villages and its access to the Keys. And so there were tourists that were going to Placencia, friends, and they were Lutherans, and they were exploring around, and they found this little old fishing village called Signbite, and they saw that the people were living very desperately in some cases and needed help. And so they began then helping at the school, St. Alphonsus Roman Catholic School, through a feeding program, a nutrition program, and then later on through scholarships. And this is how we ended up getting down in that area. They started about 20 years ago now. And they were the ones actually that said, we need a permanent missionary in Belize who will be able to help us to establish churches. And so they that is how the Meissners originals away from Signbite for a year. And then after that, they were called home due to family requirements. And so we continued to work there in Signbite. And also we had our vicar, Flores, who he and his wife, Karina, were living up in Riversdale. And we'll talk about that ministry in just a minute. And so Signbite became the site of the first church that we built in Belize, Christ Lutheran. And it is a beautiful 20 by 40 foot Mennonite built building. This building was actually built in Spanish Lookout in central Belize, and it was transported on the back of a flatbed truck all the way down on the roads of Belize to Signbite, where it was jacked up, and they built the 9-foot piers underneath it and added then the veranda on the side and the stairways. And so this building was delivered there in April. It'll be 2 years ago now. And we had the dedication of the church then, Christ Lutheran, in October of 2019, at which time there was many festivities. But one of the things that happened to us early on in this church is the fact that one of our very first members confirmed in Signbite is in a wheelchair. And this building did not have access for her. And so we decided that we would worship underneath the building in the undercroft rather than up above. And so the dedication was held down below. It's open to the street, and so people can walk by and see what we're doing there. And so a lot of times we get foot traffic through there, especially with children, as they come to see what's happening at Christ Lutheran in Signbite. And since then, we've been able to celebrate baptisms there and also other confirmations. And we have been able to do Bible school in Signbite. And here we have two of our faithful members from Signbite. On the left, Mariluz Hernandez, who is an elementary school teacher. She just recently graduated from and got her associate's degree here in Belize. And on the right, Miss Wren and her grandson, Kyrie, that's spelled Kyrie, and we know it as Kyrie, and find that in our hymnal, and her son also with her. And so these two have been instrumental in our continued work as we involve them in the work of telling other people about Jesus. And we're so blessed to have them both because Mariluz is from the Hispanic side of the community, and Miss Wren is from the Garifuna side of the community. And so we have both the major, the cultural groups that that live in Signbite represented through these two wonderful ladies. And we recently, we had a short time when we were able to gather together people before another lockdown here in Belize this last summer. And so we dusted off, we had these flannel graphs that had been left behind and given to us. And we decided that we would teach about how just as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, so Jesus was lifted up for our salvation. And let me tell you what, when we were kids and people would use a flannel board like that, and we'd sit there and watch as
That's
they
when it was
told
high
us.
tech.
That was high tech. And now, so we set this flannel graph up, and these kids were on the edges of their seats as they watched Benjamin and Karina. They used the flannel graph, and we had Miss Wren and Mariluz who were actually reading the story. And so we had old faces and new faces that came to share in this wonderful vacation Bible school there in Signbite. But we knew too that because of the changes that were mandated by the government, that we were not going to be able to continue our nutrition program out of St. Alphonsus School, and we're right next to the school. And so it was decided that we should build a kitchen and put bathrooms down below. And we were able then, through a generous donation from somebody that was in the United States, to build out then a full kitchen, a very nice kitchen in one corner of the undercroft, and add 2 bathrooms to our church there, to Christ Lutheran in Signbite. And so we look forward to the time when we'll be able once again to gather large groups of children, and we'll be able to welcome them there. There were 70 children that were in the nutrition program, and their families continue to benefit from this program. Traveling north about 15 minutes, 20 minutes, we come back up to Riversdale. And here we see Karina Johansson, Benjamin's wife, and she's talking to one of the residents there in Riversdale, inviting her to send her children to their kids club, to the Bible study that they have been doing for the last almost 2 years now, because Benjamin and Karina were placed in Riversdale when they first came here on their vicarage, and they were there for a full year before they moved to the staff house at Camp Concordia. And here we see the children then, these wonderful picnic benches where we hauled them up from Signbite, and we use those then for teaching the children, because their numbers had grown to the point where they wouldn't fit on the little bench that they had before. And so they have on average 10 to 15 children that attend this activity, and Benjamin will be going down there again tomorrow to do Kids Club with the children in Riversdale. And so jumping back into our vehicles, we travel north now to Orange Walk District. And once again, some wonderful people were placed in our paths. I don't know how the Lord knows that we need to know these people, but he does this all the time to us. And this wonderful couple, Roldan Rios, is originally from Peru, and with our Peru connection for 3 years, we immediately made friends with him and his wife, Ruth. She was the daughter of missionaries who with the Central American Church, and she grew up in southern Honduras. And they put their lives together when they attended seminary in Guatemala. And so Roldan has been termed by a friend of ours who introduced us to them, in fact, as the Billy Graham of Belize. And we're so blessed to have them, because
in a Lutheran kind of way.
In a Lutheran kind of way, absolutely. And so they take us, we go up and meet with them, and there's 2 congregations that they started up in northern Belize in Orange Walk District. And there we are in our faithful Mahindra. We're right there next to the Rio Hondo, the Hondo River, which is the border between Mexico and Belize. And we've had so much rain this year, it's just unbelievable. The road to Rio Hondo was flooded for 2 weeks. And people that had to get out and go to work, they had set up a boat, a launch on one end of the road, and they were able to take a launch across. But we couldn't do that with our vehicle. So for a while, we weren't able to worship up in San Roman, it's called. And so there we are, this beautiful church in San Roman on the Hondo River. And San Roman actually is on a kind of an island that is formed by a split in the river. And there's 3 other communities on that particular long island. But they had established this church some years ago and had built it out. It still needs plumbing and electricity, but they were able to gather together a large group of people. And this summer, we also then were able to join 2 congregations to the Lutheran Church in Belize. And so this immediately doubled our numbers. And what a blessing this has been. We see on the left then, it's a little dark, but this was the gathering then, and we all had to be socially distanced. And so we were very careful to seat people apart and have extra seating and everything. And the Lord blessed us with 5 baptisms on that particular day, as these congregations were joined then to the Lutheran Church in Missouri Synod in Belize. And here we see pictured then members from the 2 congregations, the congregation on the left from San Roman, and the congregation on the right from Orange Walk. And that takes us then to how they worship in Orange Walk. And here we have the Rios's home in Orange Walk, and he has opened up his house. He opens up his house every Sunday evening, and they get together for worship and praise. And so it is a congregation that is built around his family, but also around other families there in the Orange Walk area. And this particular day, as we gathered, we had a team from most ministries that joined us for worship. Once again, worship is in Spanish. We only have the 1 English-speaking service right now in Signbite. And so the Rioses also provided us with interpreters and with translators. as they hosted then Most Ministries Eyeglass team in Orange Walk and 2 other communities outside of Orange Walk. Over 800 people were blessed through Most Ministries in this particular visit, which was in March, just before everything closed down here. And so they got out by the skin of their teeth, all of the members of the Most team, and then the airport was closed, and there we are.
Herb, if I can interrupt you for a minute, people might be interested in how does all this traveling back and forth work? Normally, we go twice a week up to Orange Walk, which is near the Mexican border, and then, or twice a month, we travel up to Orange Walk every other Sunday. And then those in between Sundays, we travel down to Placencia. Benjamin is in Placencia and Riversdale every Sunday. And right now, though, because Orange Walk got hammered with COVID cases, there were people coming informally across the Mexican border. Both Orange Walk and Corozal District have been locked down. And so we have not been traveling there for some time now, since before Christmas. So that's kind of how our travel arrangement goes. And then when we don't have Sunday, when we have Fifth Sunday, we've been gathering people in Valley of Peace.
And just recently, we were contacted by some expats from some Americans who came down for the holiday for New Year's, and they asked us if we could do a New Year's service. And so we were able to do it right here at Banana Bank Ranch. And so we're set up for worship here whenever the occasion comes up. So before the lockdown, and while things were a little looser, we were able to have Bible school. Not only you saw the flannel board that we used. We used it in all of the locations, and we did 4 vacation Bible schools this last summer. And so in Orange Walk, we welcomed these children in from the community there in Orange Walk, and they all participated then in our vacation Bible school in Orange Walk. And also we had one in San Roman. So it's right close to home here. One of the suburbs of Belmopan, the capital, is Mayamopan. And we got to know a family actually through the Meisners when they were here and living in Belmopan. And they are Hispanic and Mayan. And so Markie has been invited to do then Bible study with the children in the home of one of the family members there. And so you see Markie leaning out from the Dutch door of their home, and she continues to do Bible study with the kids. We use the children's bulletins from Concordia Publishing that correspond then to the readings for the week, and also then she has been helping them with their schoolwork since the schools have been locked down here now all during the pandemic. The teachers, they are to prepare lessons for the children, and the parents have to go every Monday and pick up the children's lessons and go home and teach them. And this is why we haven't been able to open then the preschool in Valley of Peace to teach young people English, because they speak a Maya dialect or Spanish in their homes. And many of the parents are really limited in their ability to understand and speak English themselves. And so this is one of the requirements or one of the things that we continue to offer as a service, and it is a wonderful way to reach into the lives of these young people. We have been blessed to have this short-term campus that had been built out many years ago next to us, and this early in January of last year, 2020, we were blessed to have the entire leadership team of the Latin American Caribbean region come to Camp Concordia, and here we gathered around the campfire and told lies and sang songs, and we had a wonderful visit from the leadership team of the region. And we were really saddened actually because while Ted Cray, our regional director, was here, there was an earthquake in Puerto Rico, and he was called away early in order to visit the brothers and sisters in Puerto Rico. And so, but the camp was a little bit long in the tooth, I would say, when we acquired it. And so the Florises for the last year have been living in the building on the left. And uh, whenever it rained or anything like that, they would get a little wet, and whenever the mowers would come and mow, there would be grass all over that little platform there in front and everything. And I talked to Eleuterio, our builder, and I said, "What can we do about that?" And he said, "Well, we can put a screen porch on the front of that, like we did on the front of the next building you're going to see." And so we expanded then a big 12 by 8, 32 screened porch in the front of their house, and now they have a covered entry. They can take their shoes off on the porch, and we also then
Enjoy the breeze.
enjoy the breeze, absolutely, and get a little shade from the sun. And also then we had our guys sand the entire building and stain it with a special stain that resists water and helps resist the weather. And so Markie is going to talk about the cabana.
Well, also back at the Flores' home, it also now enjoys a new bathroom. Ontario refitted the entire bathroom. So it's being little by little modernized and made to be a lovely home.
Should I tell him about the bats in the bathroom?
Bats everywhere. Herb was preparing this, and he was kind of waxing eloquently about the stairway and stuff. And I said, Herb, just explain to him, it was a wreck. This is what we lovingly call the cabana. And as I said, it was a wreck, also inhabited by bats, but it had, as my mother would say, good bones. So Eleuterio has completely gutted the whole thing, put on this lovely screen porch, put in a new bathroom, and the kitchen is all made new. And we think it's really kind of a charming cottage now.
We have been blessed, as I mentioned before, to have Reverend Benjamin and Karina Flores with us for more than 2 years now. And we were even more overjoyed and blessed when he traveled in late November of last year to Bolivia, where he was ordained, and he becomes part then of a new order, actually, in the Lutheran Church in Bolivia. And so we have been an instrument in God's hands to bring the Lutheran Church in Bolivia closer to the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, and we look forward to our continued relationship with the Lutheran Church in Bolivia in the future.
And Benjamin has been called now as an alliance missionary, isn't that
and
correct?
so Benjamin now is considered to be an alliance missionary. Before he was a vicar. And so they are alliance missionaries come from other countries, and they work hand in hand with our LCMS missionaries. We just recently, our regional director and was able to also work a new deal where we've called new pastors then from Brazil also to be working along beside us as alliance missionaries. We are looking forward to the arrival of the Micah Wildauer family. Micah and his family have been living in Togo, West Africa for the last 5 years. Actually, almost a year ago that they left Togo, but they have been in the Dominican Republic learning Spanish because Togo was a Francophone, French-speaking country. But they will be coming to us in February, and we're looking forward to the time when they'll be able to join us also as church planters and missionaries here in Belize. We also are looking forward to the arrival of Jordan and Justin Logston. And due to a death in her family, they were called away from the Dominican Republic quite suddenly just before Christmas. And we look forward to their deployment here. She'll be she will be teaching English as a second language and helping young people, just as we've identified here. And we look forward to Justin being a communication specialist and technical specialist for us. We really need help with our technology.
Back to the flannel board.
I'm also the area facilitator within the region for Mexico, for the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico. And we have a little congregation right across the border in Chetumal, Mexico. We have not been able to visit them since the border was closed last year, but we continued to be prayerful and encouraging of them. I'm also then the area facilitator for Guatemala, which borders us on the west, and for Honduras, which is across the Bay of Honduras. And I also then am the area facilitator for Venezuela in northern South America. And it is through these connections that we continue to encourage them. One of the things that we have been able to do during this pandemic is we were able to train all of the pastoral leadership in Guatemala in disaster preparedness. And we were able to do it online through an instructor from Panama and through our Mercy Center in the Dominican Republic. And what a blessing that was that we did that instruction, because lo and behold, we had 2 hurricanes that afflicted Central America just a couple of months ago. Hurricanes Eta and Iota came back to back here and flooded many areas in eastern Guatemala and throughout Honduras. And so they were able to react very quickly in ways that were very proactive in Guatemala. And we have been able then to get grants to help the churches in Guatemala. And also there was a wonderful collection that was taken up by one of our congregations in the US to help our missions in Honduras. And so we come to the darkness, I guess. Behold,
End of day.
End of day. Jesus says in Revelation 21, behold, I make all things new. And he goes on a little bit later to say, I am the Alpha and the Omega. And as we have been blessed to be your missionaries and God's hands and feet here in Belize, we thank all of those who continue to support us with their prayers and through their gifts and through their encouragement and through surprise emails and visits, just as it happened at New Year's from people that came here to Belize to enjoy the beauty and what we have to offer here. And so we're so very thankful for this opportunity too to share with you what is happening in Belize, which is just a little tiny corner in all of Latin America.
It's a blessing to be here at the Alpha start of a mission in the Omega part of our lives.
Okay.
There we are.
Wonderful presentation, Herb and Markie. If you all are willing to stick around for a bit, I did get a few questions. And those of you who are here, if you think of other questions, feel free again to use the chat box or the Q&A feature to keep sending those in, and I will direct them to the Burches so that we get them all answered for you. So the first one is from Marge Frank in Janesville, Wisconsin, and she was wondering, when you were talking about the feeding program, I believe that was in Sinbite, where does the food come from?
The Belize Mission Society started this program, and they continue then to send contributions to the community, even during the lockdown, when the children were not able to go to the school and get breakfast and lunch. The Belize Mission Society has sent contributions to the community leadership in Sinbite, and the leadership has purchased basics, rice, beans, sugar, flour, and things like that, and distributed it to 25 different families that were identified then through through the leadership within the community of Sign Bite. And many of these are connected then to the children who were involved in the nutrition program at St. Alphonsus School. So it's the Belize Mission Society with whom an NGO of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod that continues to be a strong and encouraging partner in our mission here in Belize.
Great. Our next question is from Brenda, and she is in Maine. And she's wondering how do you find that people react to the LCMS doctrine in Belize? Are they receptive to it? And then specifically, she was wondering about the Rioses. Were they already Lutheran when you came in contact with them, or did they become Lutheran after engaging with your ministry there?
It's Belizeans, because of the diversity of the cultures here, are very malleable. And I think, many of them come from a Roman Catholic background, but are non-practicing. And as Benjamin Flores has observed, he said, many Belizeans are very religious on Sundays, and then they go about their business in other ways on the rest of the week. And so we have found receptivity to the Lutheran doctrine. The Lutheran Church really never had a presence here, with the exception of one little mission out in western Belize, close to San Ignacio, many years ago. And so as we go around, we find that there is a certain knowledge of the Bible. They've all been touched by short-term teams that have taught them, Jesus loves me, this I know, and John 3:16. But beyond that, there is a hunger here for more Bible and profounder Bible, and so I think it gives us many opportunities here that we're able to take advantage of. And the Rios is basically, he was trained at Seteca, which is a seminary that was founded by the Baptists and Presbyterians in Guatemala. And he had a Presbyterian background, but he also had worked with the Central American Lutheran Mission Society for many years as they were visiting Belize. And as he visited, he got to know many of their instructors, their trainers, Steve Huey. Basically the Rioses were probably closet Lutherans and didn't realize it for the longest time.
Well, didn't he get hooked up with the Luther Academy?
He got hooked up then with Sam Gomez out of San Diego, who works with the seminary in Irvine, with Concordia Servant Seminary in Irvine, and was doing instruction out of Irvine. And so that's how we got connected with him. And so once again, it is really miraculous how God places these people in our path. And we don't know how this happens, but God does.
Well, and you're about the question about Lutheran theology. Marie Luz and I were going through the catechism, and she just stopped me dead in the middle. She said, why doesn't everybody get to read this? She said, this is so wonderful. And I thought, what a good point. So people who are hurting to hear the depth of God's love, that understanding of what we really believe, are thrilled. A lot of times it goes over people's heads and they go on their way. But people who are hungry for the truth are eager to hear what Martin Luther penned when he helped us understand what we believe as Christians.
I think the other part of that is so many people are bound up in legalism.
Yes, there's a lot
and
of that here.
It is refreshing for them to hear the gospel from a Lutheran standpoint.
Yeah.
Wonderful. All right, then this one was when you were talking about your role as an area facilitator in other parts of the region. Can you give a little update on the church situation in Venezuela? And that one is from one of the pastors that we have joining us, Reverend Eric Wood from Emmanuel in Oakville, Illinois.
Certainly. There are still 14 active pastors in Venezuela with the Lutheran Church of Venezuela. And we have been supporting them for the last 3 years through 3 types of grants, actually. We consider, first of all, the pastors in Venezuela have been receiving a small stipend that helps them to feed their families because of the food shortages and everything else. And so these have been administered in the past through an NGO in Florida. And we're still struggling because of the U.S. banking laws. It's hard to get money into Venezuela, but the Lord continues to show us a way to get it there.
Venezuela,
yeah,
yes.
and Venezuela continues to suffer from hyperinflation. Their problem is if they buy bolivares today, they're worth nothing tomorrow because they've been inflated out of value. The other part of that has been a partnership with the Lutheran Church in Chile, in which medicines are packaged up. They're purchased in bulk in Chile. They're taken out of the blister packs and bagged in baggies, and they send then from Chile. They can send a package that weighs 2 kilos. That's 4.4 pounds. And they send these then to the individual pastors based on prescriptions and requirements that they have. And so this wonderful, it's been the best avenue for getting medicines into the hands of Venezuelans in country. The third leg then of this support that we've been offering for Venezuela is for the diaspora, Venezuelans who have left Venezuela and are looking in other places. And so we have been providing grants to help Venezuelans to obtain work permits where they happen to be, for instance, in Chile or in Peru. And also we have a very active mission now in Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic. And we have actually a Venezuelan pastor, Sergio Maita, who is ministering then to many Venezuelans who have moved from Venezuela to Dominican Republic. And he has started a very active mission there. And it involves also training for them. And they're also working on a program to help them to get work permits so that they can actually be working in Dominican Republic. And we've also had grants then to our mission in Spain, where we've had some Venezuelans who have ended up there, and also in Bolivia. So that's the third part of this.
The Venezuelans who have made the congregation up in Los Olivos, our little church in Peru, so big they needed a new center. So
Yes.
they've moved to a bigger worship space.
The Venezuelan diaspora swelled the congregation that we were working with when we were in Lima, to the point where they no longer fit in the little church where we were worshiping.
God knows what he's doing.
It's pretty amazing to be a part of all of that.
Yeah.
Couple more questions. They keep rolling in, which is wonderful. I've gotten a few wondering about funding. Can you explain a little bit about the funding model, both for you and for the projects taking place within Belize and in your other areas of responsibility? Specifically, one of the comments was triggered by all of the building repairs that you're mentioning. Could you explain maybe a little bit about the NSM and Foro model?
Okay, first of all, we are supported by the gifts of members of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod that are forwarded either to the Synod in St. Louis or to Mission Central in Western Mapleton, Iowa. And we have continued to be blessed through those gifts. That's how we jumped onto the mission field so very fast, in fact, when we left California and went to Peru. And we continue to be supported through those gifts. And so that is what pays for our support. Well, And how are we paying for all of this this construction that we're doing? Well, with part of it comes, we're able to charge rent to the florists, and so we're turning that right back around and reinvesting it in the infrastructure there. But also then a lot of this is just Markie and I just have such a love for this that we have been contributing where we can too.
That's the other good point about being in the Omega part of life.
And then sort of a related question to kind of how things are supported. Someone is wondering, Carolyn from Wisconsin is wondering, do you ever need supplies or stuff for your ministry? Are there things that LWML ladies, for example, could collect that would be ministry needs for you? Or is it better to support prayerfully and financially?
It kind of depends on how free travel is, but recently I would say nothing is normal, but things are taxed so terribly when they come across the border that sending stuff is sometimes tricky. And even at the airport, if people have suitcases that have things like, school supplies and stuff, that people have had to pay duty. The most eyeglass clinic people had to pay duty on all of those eyeglasses that had been donated. So that's the biggest problem with stuff. Sometimes you can get things to come across without any problem, and sometimes it's real problematic. So in some ways it's really better to buy them here and not have to fight with the aduana, the tax people. Is that what you were going to say?
That's
Yeah.
a good part of it. Yeah. There was a wonderful group of people that made these little dresses a few years ago.
Pillowcase dresses.
Pillowcase dresses, and they sent them to our post office box, and I noticed that on the package it cost them $75 to send that package down here, and the cost for getting it down here more than equaled the value of the merchandise, and so it's very prohibitive in some respects. We have come upon a new way of getting things down here through a freight forwarding company out of Texas, and so that recently we were running short on catechisms, and we wanted to get some Christmas books from CPH to give out to our children here, and we were able to use that approach, and they all came in duty free, and we were able then, in fact, these very heavy boxes that were filled with books cost us much less to come from Texas through this freight forwarder than through the mail.
They probably have an agent who's able to help distinguish between what is something that needs to have duty paid and something that should be tax-free.
And books and printed materials do come into Belize duty-free.
Oh.
Fantastic. All right, the next question is from actually another LCMS missionary that we have on the call. We have a number of LCMS missionaries who are joining these different live presentations to learn about ministry that is happening in other parts of the world. So this one happens to come from missionary Ashley Lair, who is serving in Puerto Rico. And she's curious about what the plans are for the Wildauers. Where will they be living, and what church will they be serving?
Initially, they'll be living in Belmopan. We have made arrangements through another missionary family who left Belize last March to use their house. It's fully furnished at this point, and so this allows them some time. And so we've arranged to place the Wildauers into this house in Belmopan. With using our hub and spoke approach to doing ministry, we anticipate continuing to work out of Belmopan as our hub, just as the government does. And I would anticipate that we really want to have a Lutheran church in every district, in all 6 districts of Belize, and also would like to have the Lutheran church a presence established on Ambergris Key, San Pedro,
Soon.
soon. And there's I just got an email from a lady who is moving from Nevada, from Las Vegas to San Pedro to Ambergris Key, and she wants to know about the closest Lutheran services. And we have a dear friend who is on the board of directors for LCMS, who owns a hotel in San Pedro, and so we're able to get a bit of a break on the hotel. And so we want to rotate between the different missionaries. They can go out there and get a bit of a break.
You're
and
getting ahead of us.
Also, yeah. But we want to plant a
He's
church
doing-
in Ambergris Key
I
too.
think Michael will also, hopefully there will be teaching opportunities
Yeah.
here for Micah as well. And I'm sure that God is speaking to him now also before he even gets here as to what his role will be.
One recent conversation that we had is establishing a pre-seminary program for all of Latin America or Central America in Belize at Camp Concordia. And and I think this would be a real opportunity then for us to bring young people here that want to go to seminary and need a pre-seminary program.
We're central to Mexico, Guatemala, and Honduras here. So that's a pretty good representation of Central America just right here.
So you kind of just touched on this with in talking about some of those different opportunities and people who are contacting you. But this is a multi-part question from Karen Moser in Peoria, Illinois. What are you looking forward to in 2021? How can we pray for the direction God is tugging at your hearts to take, and what obstacles need to be overcome for where the Lord is leading you in the future?
I see us continuing to do outreach like in Western Belize, in San Ignacio, and also then, as we mentioned just a little bit ago, about looking out to Ambergris Key and starting to establish more of these hubs or more of these spokes as we move out from the hub. The biggest challenge that we have right now is that we are limited. We cannot gather more than 10 people in any one place due to the lockdown here and the requirement to wear masks. But that's okay. Bible study doesn't have to have more than 10 people. In fact, it's more intimate. We actually are able to reach into people's lives individually. And so I think it's a challenge, but it's also then a blessing in many respects.
And I think for prayer, having 2 new families coming onto the field, and now Benjamin as a pastor instead of simply in the vicar role, that God would speak boldly to all of these couples and help them to recognize his will for them and for all of us to work together. I think that's always the greatest fun on the mission field, is when we can become, mission family, and for how that will work.
So just one more quick one, unless I get any last minute submissions here. You mentioned a number of the different languages and people groups that are in your area in Belize, and the diversity that you get to minister amongst. Do you use Bibles in the heart language of any of the people groups besides English and Spanish?
We don't use any. We have a Kekchi Bible, but I don't speak Kekchi. And we also have a Belizean Creole Bible that was gifted to us when we first came here. And I am challenged to understand Belizean Creole.
And my ear doesn't catch up to it.
It would be wonderful if we could use these other vehicles, because I do know that the Kekchi Bible at least is available in the Old Testament and the New Testament.
But one of the biggest issues, again, goes back to reading. Many people who might benefit most from a language in their, a Bible in their heart language, might not be able to read it even if they had it. And I don't know that many people have been trained in reading Kekchi. So English being the national language, what we have realized is even speaking English to people who are English speakers, we still sometimes have a disconnect in language. So I think that really getting into the Bible, both in English and in Spanish, is helpful to the literacy of the people we encounter. Do we miss some people? Perhaps. But I think that helping people to open God's word in one of those two languages is helpful to most people here.
Interestingly enough, too, is that as we go out shopping and so forth in stores and so forth, the language that I hear more spoken than any other language is Spanish.
I agree. It's becoming more and more prevalent.
Those are some great points, Markie. Faith comes by hearing, right?
Yes. Yes.
So that was the last question for you guys. So again, I just want to thank I want to thank you guys for taking your time this afternoon or this morning to share about what God has called you to do in Belize and around the region, and tell your story for us. It was wonderful, very enlightening, educational.
Fun.
So thank you again. Fun, yes, absolutely. So thank you again. And then thank you to all of our attendees. It looks like most everyone stuck around to hear the answers to all of your questions, and I'm getting lots of greetings and messages for you. So I'll pass those along. So with that, just a couple of concluding comments for everyone, all of you attendees. We were recording this presentation if you weren't here at the beginning. The recording will be available on the Missions Unpacked website, at least until the duration of Missions Unpacked, as well as all of the activities that you had the opportunity to do throughout the week to learn about LAC and explore different places in our region. And then we encourage you to join us next week for Eurasia. There'll be an intro video unlocked at midnight on Sunday night. And then again, some activities to explore throughout the week. And we will see you back here next Saturday, same time and same link, for another live presentation from a different missionary in a completely different part of the world. So thank you all so much, and blessings on the rest of your day.
What did you just